The Corey Heim Carson Hocevar saga has continued. This long-standing rivalry is still going, and the Brickyard 400 had a spotlight on it. And honestly, the rivalry between these two, the back and forth, was the best part of this race, which I did not think was very good. Now, Corey Heim obviously won Sunday's Brickyard 400, his second win in just 15 Cup starts, his second of the year in 8 starts. It's outstanding for him in a part-time ride. Now, he was able to do this on a part-time level, but he also had to go through Carson Hocevar, the Hurricane, to get the job done. He's a guy who's a prospect who is just barely getting started. And he is showing up, showing out, and winning on a very consistent basis. Okay. Now, Carson Hocevar, he's a young, fast, unfiltered, quickly building a reputation as one of the sport's best prospects, most outstanding prospects, one of the more entertaining guys that NASCAR has to offer. And when you have these types of personalities where Heim is willing to speak out and where Carson's willing to speak out and they're both willing to be aggressive on the racetrack, it produces must-see television. And for NASCAR, that's desperately what we need. Now, let's walk through the mechanics of what happened. During stage 2, a cycle of pit stops left Hocevar cycling out behind Corey Heim and running a lap down. So the idea was Carson was going to pit ahead of Corey Heim because they were, I think, first and second or first and third. And that way, okay, Carson is around Heim. Maybe he can get ahead of Heim, and ultimately Heim has to pit. He'll get his lap back, or he'll at least be ahead of Heim, and then he'll take the lead, right? Well, Denny Hamlin kind of threw a wrench into this. He pitted. So he went from the 5th place car, and he was going to be near the front. And then you also had Hocevar's team telling him to save fuel because you're trying to get the second stage was about to end. He was frustrated with that. He couldn't pass Heim, as it just kind of begins with, outside of fuel saving. And so there was a frustration that built up, and laps ticked away, and Heim stayed in front of him, and Hocevar voiced it over the team radio. Now, Heim went for his scheduled stop. He was going down pit road. He was about to hit that white line where you have that little orange painted area saying, don't pass over here, don't cross over here if you don't intend to pit. And so Hocevar decided to basically run side by side with Heim right before you get to that line, give him the bird and move on. Now, what I do love about this is NASCAR actually posted this footage on social media, as they should have, because it's what makes the sport great. It's exciting, it's drama-filled, and that's what we want from these personalities, right? You can say that it was Carson displaying his displeasure with Heim. You could say that it was his frustration, or you could just say that's freaking Carson Hocevar. This guy is awesome. Now, let's go to the post-race. On TNT Sports, Steve Letarte had the question ready and asked Heim about the flyby middle finger, which is one of the best scenes of that entire race. And the twist that makes this even better, Heim said that he had not even seen the gesture at the time, so his comeback was pure instinct. He said, I handed him a big fat L after that. And I 100% believe that. Like, think about this. You're going 180 miles an hour. You're trying to make sure you're in this very, very confined area. You're supposed to make sure that you're below the speed road limit, right, in terms of speeding, or at least on the line with that. And then you're trying to pit and you're trying to find your sign. There's a lot, and you got people talking, and it's pressure filled, right? I get that. Now, let's move along to the press conference, because a reporter brought up Hocevar again, and Heim asked where Hocevar had actually finished, and when he was told 9th, Heim delivered a second dagger. He said, you guys sure love to talk about a guy who finished 9th. Now, here's why it stings. Heim answered both on the scoreboard, a win, and at the microphone. And he didn't even do it by cussing the guy out, raising his voice, just being the silent troll. And this is interesting, because we're about to get to Carson's comments here in a minute. But I love the idea that you have Carson Hocevar, who's this outspoken, unfiltered, loud guy. And then you have Heim, who is the complete opposite, which is what you want. You don't want two hotheads going at it. You want a technical, calculated guy who's going to be aggressive, and then you want just a balls out, insane wild man in Carson Hocevar, and then them go at it. That is awesome. Okay. Now, let's go to Hocevar because he was asked about the gesture and he gave 0 round, going full sarcasm. He said, I'm just a fan, adding that he wanted to wave to Heim. He's number 1. He won, which is such a Carson Hocevar line. Now, here we have to look at Hocevar because this line makes him an even more lovable character, a more guy that you can root for, a guy you want to see succeed, right? Keep in mind that Carson is not in the same equipment as Corey Heim is. Okay, I understand Corey Heim is in technically a 2311 part-time car, but they have full backing from Toyota. This is an expansion JGR car. You have Carson Hocevar, who's in Spire, who, yes, does get some funding by Hendrick, but I do not see Spire on the same level as 2311, and not even by a long shot. You have Carson, who is probably overdriving the car and getting more out of the car than that is needed because the car doesn't have that, right? Carson's talent in the car is better than the car. That's what makes great drivers. That's what makes great champions. And I think Carson's going to be that guy. Hocevar being an unapologetic guy is what makes people love him. The guy that loves the sport. And this is interesting. So, yes, could you say that Hocevar got embarrassed by Heim saying, hey, well, Heim won the race? And Heim said, well, he finished 9th. Why are we even talking about this guy? Sure. But I think Hocevar is the guy that now Monday morning and going throughout this off week is going to be the guy that is talked about more than Heim. Yes, Heim, very impressive. But what Carson did was able to take the spotlight that was on Heim and put it on himself. And that is going to rally people. And everything that this guy does is just more and more impressive. Let me know down in the comments there below. Are you team Heim or are you team Hocevar?